Today, we are wrestling with a concept so audacious, it doesn't just push the boundaries of physics, it tries to reverse the direction of time itself. We are diving into quantum retrocausality. That's the theoretical idea that future events can, in fact, influence past occurrences. Think about that. If you, right now, make a choice, could that choice retroactively influence something that already happened? It sounds completely like science fiction, I know, but it's actually a serious attempt by physicists to make quantum mechanics, well, logically consistent. Okay, let's unpack this.
And that really is our mission here for you, the listener. This isn't just, theoretical physicists looking for a cool new paradox to play with. They're kind of being forced towards retrocausality to solve genuine, deep contradictions, the ones that pop up when they try to square quantum predictions with our classical sort of linear intuition about how reality works.
Yeah.
And this idea, it forces us to rethink, well, almost everything. It doesn't just affect tiny particles. It has these profound implications for philosophy, especially around the nature of time, the existence of free will, and even how we think about moral responsibility. It's this huge tangled web.
Right, which is why we have to start at the absolute foundation. Why do physicists even need the future to talk to the past? What's the basic problem in quantum theory that this idea is trying to solve?
Fundamentally, it boils down to this. Conventional forward-moving interpretations of causality, they can't replicate some of the statistical results we actually see in quantum experiments. You run smack into these things called no-go theorems. Think of it like this, right? We run experiments, we measure correlations between entangled particles. Now, if you assume time only goes forward and that physics is locally real, meaning things only influence their immediate neighborhood, the math just breaks down. It doesn't work. Retrocausality sort of offers a potential way around this. It lets information travel backward in time, just enough to set up those strange non-local correlations, but without breaking the basic rules of relativity.
Okay, so we're trying to avoid the universe having to send signals instantly across huge distances, which would violate Einstein's speed limit, the speed of light. But how does this backward communication actually work? Is it just like a mathematical trick?
Well, it forces us to consider that maybe causal relationships are inherently time-symmetric, reversible. A lot of quantum phenomena, at their deepest level, don't really seem to care whether time is running forwards or backwards. You see this really clearly in some interpretations, like the transactional interpretation of quantum mechanics. Here, an event, say a photon getting emitted, and its later absorption or measurement, they're seen as a kind of handshake, a deal. The emission is the past offer. The absorption is the future acceptance. For the whole thing to happen, the future state sends a kind of confirmation signal back in time to the past state. They sort of finalize the deal across time.
Wait, hold on. So the photon, it knows where it's going before it even leaves. That sounds like the universe isn't just unfolding moment by moment, but maybe everything is already laid out. Or at least it all exists at once.
Exactly. If you take time symmetry seriously at the quantum level, you kind of need a framework where all moments past, present, future are equally real, equally there. And this brings us to a really important theoretical idea that supports retrocausality, the relational block world interpretation.
A block world, what does that actually look like? Because, my brain always defaults to that movie reel idea. One frame passes, the next appears, the last one's gone.
Yeah, the block world completely throws out the movie reel. Instead, try imagining reality as maybe a physical sculpture or
Sure.
a huge completed book. Every single event, your birth, this conversation right now, your retirement, way down the line is just a point in that block. A specific coordinate in four-dimensional space-time, past, present, future. They're just directions within that block. They're more about our experience of navigating it, not fundamental physical divisions. So in this view, time flowing is basically an illusion. Retrocausality is just acknowledging that connections between points in space-time can happen in any temporal direction. Because all those points, past and future, they exist simultaneously and depend on each other.
Okay, that completely reframes the whole thing. So if the theory needs this because of those no-go theorems, then the next obvious question is there any experimental evidence? Does the universe actually behave this way? Here's where it gets really interesting. Because if effects can actually come before their pauses, we'd need some pretty dramatic proof, wouldn't we? Evidence that the universe really doesn't care about our neat linear timeline.
We do have some evidence, yeah.
Yeah.
It really started gaining traction with work following John Archibald Wheeler's famous delayed choice thought experiment. One of the first really notable experimental investigations was by Carroll Alley and his team over at the University of Maryland. They set up this interferometer experiment using photons. It was complicated, but the core idea, the finding, was this. You could fire a photon, right?
Yeah.
And the decision about how to measure it, which forces it to look like either a wave or a particle, that decision could be made after the photon had already gone past the crucial point in the experiment where it supposedly should have decided which form to take.
So the photon had already committed, wave or particle, and then a choice made later retroactively changed what that past commitment was.
That's the implication, yeah. And the really, really striking demonstration, the one that's hardest to explain away with just forward causality, is the 1999 Kim Chan-Scully delayed choice quantum eraser experiment. It's like the ultimate paradox machine.
Okay, walk us through that one. What's so crazy about the timing in that setup?
Right, so in this experiment, they use entangled pairs of photons.
Mm-hmm.
Let's call them photon A and photon B. Photon A goes through a double slit setup. We might be able to get which path information there, figure out if it went through slit 1 or slit 2.
Mm-hmm.
Meanwhile, photon B flies off on its own separate, much longer path.
Yeah.
Now, photon A hits its detector screen almost instantly. And depending on where it lands, it looks like either a particle, if we know the path, or a wave showing interference, if we don't. But here's the absolute kicker. The decision about whether we get that which path information, that decision is made using photon B, which takes way, way longer to reach its own set of detectors.
So photon A hits the screen. Its pattern is already there, particle clumps or wave pattern, long before we even decide what measurement to make on photon B way over there.
That's the critical time gap. The choice made with photon B, that's the future event relative to A's arrival, was either to gather the path info or erase it. And gathering the path info made photon A look like a particle retroactively. Erasing the path info made photon A display that wave interference pattern retroactively. The decision made later completely dictated photon A's past behavior. It's probably the strongest experimental hint we have that measurement choices are somehow reaching back in time.
That is genuinely mind-bending. And the broader takeaway from these experiments, I guess, is that they're seen as pretty strong evidence against local realism, right? The idea that a particle's behavior is only set by its immediate environment and its own history.
Absolutely. The fact that a measurement decision made far away, potentially later in time, can seemingly influence a particle's past state. It really shakes the foundations of classical physics. Depending on your interpretation, it even challenges Einstein's core idea that physical influences have to be local. Proponents of retrocausality argue their model is actually the most consistent way to explain these weird correlations without needing faster-than-light signals, which would break special relativity. Okay, this pushes us firmly into philosophy now. If a future decision can determine a past event, that creates some serious problems for ideas like agency, responsibility. Oh, absolutely. Our whole moral framework is basically built on a linear view of time, isn't it? I make a choice today. I'm responsible for the consequences tomorrow. Retrocausality kind of flips that whole script on its head. And the philosophical pushback has been pretty fierce, going way back. You had philosophers like Michael Dummett who argued, maybe surprisingly, that there wasn't an inherent logical problem with effects coming before causes. But that idea immediately hit a major snag, the famous bilking argument, which was put forward by Max Black.
The bilking argument. How do you bilk causality? Sounds like cheating time.
Yeah, kind of. Black argued retrocausality is impossible because you could always create a paradox by intervening. Let's say you believe that pressing a button tomorrow, the future cause, will make a light turn on right now, the present effect. Okay, so you see the light turn on right now. You know the supposed future cause hasn't happened yet. What stops you right now from just smashing the button, preventing the future cause from ever occurring? If you can prevent the future cause, then the past effect you just saw. Well, it shouldn't have happened. It's a logical contradiction. Black basically said, because we feel like we could intervene and bilk the system, retrocausality just can't work.
Wait, but if the universe is that block world thing we talked about, that static sculpture, then maybe I can't actually intervene. Maybe the universe, the whole block, already accounts for whether I smash the button or not.
That is precisely the counterargument from the retrocausal perspective, especially linked to the block world. If those quantum correlations require the future outcome to be sort of fixed to explain the past statistics, then the block worldview suggests your feeling of free will to smash the button might be, well, an illusion of perspective. You're a necessary part of this whole four-dimensional pattern. You're either going to smash the button or you're not. But that outcome is already part of the block's structure. It's not determined by your choice in that single moment.
Wow. Well, that really complicates things like moral responsibility, doesn't it? It shifts the focus from active choice to just being part of a pre-written script.
It absolutely forces us to ask some deep questions.
Right.
Is free will really the ability to choose differently in the moment? Or is it just the subjective feeling we have while making a choice that was, in the grand scheme of space-time, always going to happen?
Okay, let's maybe step back from the existential abyss for a second and think about the practical side. If retrocausality turns out to be right, what could we actually do with it? Any technological advantages?
Potentially, yes. The implications could be huge, especially for things like quantum computing. Understanding retrocausality might actually help us design more efficient quantum algorithms. Think about it. If a quantum system can use these time-symmetric loops, it's almost like the computer could reach into the future to grab the solution. If the final output state can somehow influence the initial setup or the path the calculation takes, you might solve problems much faster. You'd cut down on some of the step-by-step processing. It's like knowing the answer helps you find the quickest way to prove it.
It's fascinating, using time itself as a kind of computational shortcut.
Exactly. And researchers are actually designing new experiments right now to test these ideas more directly. They're building automated setups where they can precisely control and vary time intervals in experiments, not just spatial arrangements. So they might systematically change how long a measurement window is open, say, from 60 seconds up to an hour, just to see if the sheer duration, the timing itself, has nonlinear effects on quantum behavior observed earlier.
Mm.
They want to treat time as a variable they can tweak.
So what does this all mean then? We've gone from this really radical theoretical need driven by those no-go theorems through some genuinely startling experimental results that seem to defy linear time, and we've landed on potential game changers for computing alongside a pretty major philosophical headache.
Yeah, the big picture, the synthesis, really seems to be that quantum mechanics is pushing us, maybe even forcing us, to let go of our everyday intuition about time simply flowing forward. Thinkers like Dean Rickles argue that modern physics basically points towards accepting that block universe model, where the perceived differences between past, present, and future just kind of dissolve at a fundamental level. Retrocausality would then just be the natural way things interact within that block.
Which leaves you, our listener, with a final, pretty provocative thought to chew on. If the measurement you make right now has to be accounted for in the past for quantum mechanics to work, and if the universe is like a finished sculpture with all moments coexisting, does that mean you've never actually experienced an unknown future? Are you just moving through a reality that has, in a sense, already written itself from beginning to end?